Welcome to the Live Life Extraordinary podcast. I'm your host, Bianca DeLuco. January marked 10 years since I was certified in yoga. And so for the last decade, I have been teaching self-care, self-healing, wellness, spirituality, self-development, practices, workshops, retreats, classes, all sorts of things. And back in January, when I hit that 10-year mark, which I believe is a really big milestone, I was reflecting on some of the things that I've learned in the last 10 years and came up with my top 10 things that I've learned in the last decade that I'm ready to share with you. So I brought a notebook with me today to help me remember the list of 10 things because there's a lot of really great information here. So typically the podcast episodes are about like 10, 15-ish, maybe 20 minutes. I have a feeling that because there's so much that we're going into in this episode that it is going to be a little bit longer. So grab your favorite coffee and create some space to really transform through these 10 tips. So the first thing, and I think this is the number one thing that really set me up on this journey of practicing yoga. I was a psychology student learning a lot about like mental health, and I was introduced to the mind body spirit connection, which really transformed my life because I realized I was failing all three categories. And the thing about the mind body spirit connection is that you can go to the gym and eat healthy and get your physical body running more optimally. But if you're not dealing with what's in your mind, it's still going to have a major impact on your physical body. And you can spend all of your time working on your mental and emotional well-being, but if your physical body isn't healthy, then it's still having a negative impact. And we have this kind of evidence all the time, right? When we're really stressed, we have a lot of tension and pain in our shoulders. When we're anxious, we feel that like nausea in our stomachs. You might notice that the more that you're eating like certain types of foods, the more you feel well mentally and emotionally, while eating other types of foods makes you feel not well mentally and emotionally. Sleep, major impact, even though it's like a physical health factor, major impact on our mental and emotional well-being. So there is a big crossover between all the layers of our health, and you can't be healthy in any one area without simultaneously being healthy in the other. So if you're someone that's like working really hard on having physical health, you have to really focus on your mental and emotional well-being too. So definitely the mind body spirit connection is the foundation of a lot of the things that we'll talk about, but a foundation of a lot of the work that I do with people, because your well-being is kind of the foundation to everything that you do and everything that you are. If you don't feel well, you're not going to perform well at your job or your hobbies or in your relationships. So truly everywhere you go, there you are. You are the common denominator in every single area of your life. So if you are not prioritizing your own self-care, your own well-being, no area of your life will be able to thrive. So this is really the foundation to all of it. Number two is that the first 10 minutes of your day create the tone for your entire day. And the sum of your days equals the sum of your entire life. So if every day you're starting your morning rushed, stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, and that's carrying over to your day to day, that's going to become the entirety of your life. So your morning routine is really foundational in not just being a little mentally and emotionally well. I don't think we put enough emphasis on how important it is to wake up and start our days in a really aligned and intentional way. Now, if you are someone who doesn't have a strong morning routine, the thing that sets you up for a strong morning routine is a good night's sleep, right? The thing that sets us up for a good night's sleep is a good evening routine. So if you're not sleeping very well and you're getting up in the morning, you're either going to like hit snooze 50 times, or you're going to wake up already feeling kind of grumpy, or you're going to wake up rushed. So getting good sleep is reliant on a good nighttime routine. So good nighttime routine can be really anything. You can journal before bed, read before bed. I think anytime you can get away from screens and blue light is really going to impact the way that your brain is able to settle in so that you can get good, nourishing sleep. If you have ever studied psychology, you've probably heard of Pavlov's dogs. And Pavlov's dog experiment was he'd ring a bell, feed the dog food, and eventually at the sound of the bell, the dog would start to salivate because he knew the food came after. So when you set up like a routine before bed, your brain starts to recognize that kind of as being like the bell, and it starts to wind down so that you can drop into good quality sleep. When we're on our phones or watching TV or things like that before bed, that blue light is keeping our brain activated. And when we do fall asleep, we're not dropping into deep sleep until much later because our brain takes a long time to kind of wind down. So by having an intentional routine, maybe that's skincare, maybe that's brushing your teeth, maybe that's a connection time with your partner, however you want to spend it, but doing the same thing night after night is going to create a strong foundation for a good night's sleep so that you can have a strong morning routine and overall impact the way that you're feeling on your day-to-day and increasing your quality of life. Number 3, your brain is not your friend. Your brain is designed to help you survive. It's not designed to help you thrive. Your brain doesn't, when it processes fear, it doesn't know the difference between recording a podcast or asking out someone you like or speaking on a stage or asking your boss for a raise or setting a boundary. It can't tell the difference between that type of fear and like life or death fear, like being chased by a bear. To your brain, all fear is survival, life or death. So when we experience fear, we're dropping into our fight, flight, or freeze state, right? And our brain is just trying to protect us and all that we do. Our brain is designed to help us get through every single day, not have optimal and thriving lives. So when you start to recognize this, you can begin rewiring your mindset, working with your mind so that you are having more high quality thoughts. So the thoughts that we think influence the way that we feel. The way that we feel impacts the actions that we take in our life, and the actions that we take in our life create our reality, right? So if your brain is always sabotaging you and you're always having these negative thoughts, you're not going to do the things that you desire to do in life. You're not going to take the risks. You're not going to push yourself to reach your goals. Your brain can literally sabotage you at every point in your life. So learning how to like work with your mindset, I find that things that have really helped me work with my mindset are one, positive affirmations, and not just like, I think that when I first started learning about positive affirmations, it was like, oh, I'm supposed to write them on my mirror and I'm supposed to like set them as my phone screen background and like put them on Post-it notes all around my house. And I do think that it helps us like reinforce those ideas if we're like specifically paying attention to them. But for me, positive affirmation was about like when I was finding myself in a difficult situation. Let's say I was going to have a conversation with somebody that I knew could be taken in the wrong way. My affirmation was more self-affirmation, where I would pause and say to myself, like, you're not responsible for other people's emotions. You're only responsible for yourself and the energy that you put out in the world. You're only responsible for your own integrity and your own alignment, and how people respond and react to that is not your responsibility. So I would kind of almost have conversations with myself as if I was talking to a friend. And that really helped me like reshape my mindset in a way that made me feel better and made me act better. So your brain is not your friend. Your brain is trying to keep you safe at all times. So the more you can learn to like befriend your brain and kind of talk it through those more difficult and challenging things, the better time you're going to have like making forward progress in your life. Number 4 is the power of micro habits. So I think too many of us are setting goals that are too big and too hard to achieve, right? We hear like, oh, if you shoot for the moon, you'll miss and land amongst the stars, or you'll miss and land in a sea of disappointment. At least that's how it was for me. And so when we're setting goals of like, oh, I'm going to work out every single day for an hour at 6 o'clock in the morning, you're automatically setting yourself up for failure, because the human experience is real. You're going to get a poor night's sleep. You're going to have days that you're sick. You're going to have a flat tire on your car and not make it. Like life is going to happen. Like some things are just completely out of our own control and circumstances. Like natural disasters happen, illness happens, like loss happens. Like there's so many things that are outside of our control. So when you set these like goals for literal perfection, when you fall off track, you're going to go right back into that. Well, I knew I couldn't do it. As soon as you miss Tuesday, you're going to miss Wednesday, Thursday, Friday too. So, and that's what causes us to say, oh, I'll just start next week. Oh, I'll just start tomorrow, whatever, is that we have like this idea that exercise has to be for an hour. If you're writing for a book, you have to write the whole outline in one sitting. Like that's really not it. If you can break your goals down into smaller, more achievable, more bite-sized pieces, you're going to have literally so much more success. So for me, that looked like just doing 10 minutes of movement a day. Didn't matter what. Didn't matter if it was at the gym, if it was running, if it was walking, if it was yoga, stretching, swimming. Like did not matter. I completely removed the rules and parameters around it. And actually when I first started this, it wasn't even 10 minutes a day. It was like 10 minutes 3 times a week. And so I started finding these little pockets of time where I could integrate movement into my day. And then 3 times a week became 4, and 4 became 5. And now I don't have this like super strict goal around like exercise, for example. This is one of the ones I find people like fall off track with a lot. which is why we set the same New Year's resolution every single year, because we set ourselves up with too big of a goal and then we fail and then we give up. But like for me, I traveled at the end of January, and like the week before travel, the week of travel, and the week after travel, I really didn't work out at all. And now I'm like very consistently back on my exercise routine. So it's like the more pressure we can take off ourselves for this like kind of perfection, and the more we can focus on those tiny little micro habits. Like, so for me, as I'm like cooking, I like to maybe do some yoga stretching, or maybe like do some light weights while my food is cooking. Like, rather than sitting on the couch on my phone or like watching TV or something, that's when I try to prioritize some like movement to help me stay consistent in my goals. So again, it's not like spending an hour in the gym or going to a specific class or whatever. It's about finding ways to realistically implement these things into my everyday life in ways that I know I'm not going to just quit, right? Like if I have to get dressed and drive to the gym and get really sweaty and shower after in order for it to be like worth it, then I'm like not going to do it. So I think too, when it comes to our motivation and our confidence, as we have these like really small micro habits, micro tiny goals, as you're achieving them really quickly, it's going to build your confidence and it's going to build your motivation so that you can expand and set bigger goals and achieve more. So definitely something I recommend doing. I put this into my practice, not just with exercise, but with other things too, whether that's like hobbies or even business. Like we used to have these really big goals of like making 6 figures a year or whatever. And like when it was like the first quarter and I barely made any money, I would like be really disappointed, and I'd kind of be like, oh, nobody really cares about this and what's the point of even trying, and kind of quit. And then I started like scaling my like goals back. Like I want to make $500 in the next 3 years just to pay for my website, right? And that's not sustainable a long time. But once I made that $500, I was like, wow, I can do this. And then kind of built from there. So number 5 is the concept of I'll be happy when, sometimes referred to as I'll be happy when syndrome or the arrival fallacy. And this tells us that like this is this idea that like once we reach this point in business or get this promotion or have a baby or get married or buy a new car or whatever it is, then you'll be happy. But the problem with the arrival fallacy is that happiness is fleeting and very, very temporary. You get the car and then within a week you're like, okay, like what's next? What do I need next? And then you get the promotion and you're in it for a little while and you're really happy and you're really proud, but eventually you find yourself like seeking something new and more. So this is the idea that happiness is where you are now or it's nowhere at all. And I want to preface this a little bit by saying that like there are definitely nuances to this, right? Like if you're someone that's in a domestic violence situation or going through trauma, racism, poverty, where your basic needs aren't being met, like this may not exactly apply. Like those are all very valid reasons to maybe be struggling in life. And there are other valid reasons to be struggling in life, right? There's a lot of grief and disappointment that comes from not having the things that you desire. I totally respect and understand that and have been there at many points in my life. But truly the problem becomes when we're always like feeling like we need something else in order to be happy. So the number one thing that helps with this, I find, is like a practice of gratitude, right? And appreciation for what you already have. Oprah Winfrey has this great quote that's, be thankful for what you have and you'll end up having more. If you focus on what you don't have, you'll never ever have enough. And that's just exactly the concept here, right? If you're always focusing on needing something else in order to feel fulfilled and happy, you're never actually going to feel fulfilled and happy. So like it can be true that you are both working on growing and expanding and achieving more and having bigger dreams and visions for yourself, and that you're grateful for what you have now, right? Like it doesn't have to be like, oh, if I'm grateful for what I have now, does that mean like I'm not striving for something more and different? No. You could have two polar opposite things that exist at the exact same time, which was another huge lesson for me, and I should have put that down here. But this idea that like, at the end of a relationship, maybe you feel a little bit of grief ending that relationship, but you also feel relief if it wasn't like a great relationship. So you can feel both like the sadness and like the relief and gratitude at the same time. And it's like, well, how do we feel these two contradictory things together? And it's not either or. Like life is a spectrum and you're always gonna like views the things. But so when it comes to that I'll be happy one, like focusing really on what you have to appreciate now, you probably have far more in your life to be thankful for than you even realize. Like I like to do this thing called like a gratitude dump, where you just write down everything you can think of to be thankful for, even things that are like seemingly silly. Like, oh, I'm grateful that I have fingernails. Like how hard would it be to like scratch stickers off the gifts that I buy if I didn't have fingernails, right? Like, and so if you like think about all the things in your life that make your life a little easier and a little more enjoyable, it can give you that like appreciation now. The other thing I like to recognize is that there are things you wished for before that you have now that like 5, 10 years ago, even 1 year ago, you version of you would be elated to know that you are living that reality now. And also, you probably have things now that you like, or like are lacking things now that you used to have that you took for granted. Whether that's like a loved one that has since passed, or like something like that, or your health, or like, you know, if you have like a health condition now, it's like, oh, I took all those years for granted. Like, there's always going to be like, as you receive more, you're going to lose more. Like, life is very fluid in that way. So, taking as much time to appreciate the here and now. You know, if you spend your whole life wishing away the now to like, for a better future or a better tomorrow, like you're never actually truly living and enjoying life. So that's the arrival fallacy number 5. Number 6 is that emotions are a range, and that you don't go from really deep, hard emotions like feeling depressed or disempowered or grieving to something like feeling joy and gratitude. They're like a very big spectrum of emotions, where like the most negative emotions are on the bottom and the most positive are on the top, and that doesn't mean good or bad, right or wrong. That's just like the basically frequency of these emotions, right? And you don't go from the very bottom to the very top. It's basically like rungs of a ladder, where maybe you go from feeling grief to feeling numb, and from numb to feeling neutral, and from neutral to feeling hopeful, and from hopeful, you know, you like kind of go like higher and higher. And when I used to really struggle with depression, I used to be really hard on myself for like not being able to just like feel happy. Like, other people seemed so happy. Like, why couldn't I just be happy? When I really needed to focus on how I could go from being like feeling like really depressed to feeling maybe just frustrated with my circumstances, and from frustrated to neutral, you know? So thinking when you're in those really, really hard times, like, not being really hard on yourself, because the harder you are on yourself, the more you're going to go into a downward spiral and dig yourself into a deeper hole. The more you can, like, 1, give yourself grace, and 2, work on feeling just a little bit better at a time. Eventually you'll start feeling better overall. And so that means like calling a friend and having a conversation with a friend, and that makes you feel a little bit better. And then you declutter a space in your house that makes you feel a little bit better. And then you go for a walk outside, and that makes you feel a little bit better. So again, relying on some of those more like micro habit things, like you don't have to like go to an hour-long therapy appointment or on this transformational retreat or like something massive to have this like huge shift. Sure, those things definitely can help, and if you feel called to do those things, if you feel pulled in those directions, then absolutely do those things. But sometimes the like shifts to feeling better are just like tiny little micro movements that help us like climb that ladder to better feeling. So number 7 is kind of challenging a popular phrase. So you always hear people say like, oh, you can't pour from an empty cup, like you have to refill your cup first. And like I totally believe that, as we talked about earlier with like the mind body spirit connection and like nurturing ourselves mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, like because you are the common denominator in every area of your life. I will say that most of us are not pouring from empty cups. 2 things. Most of us have proven again and again that we can pour from whatever's in our cup. When we are depleted, when we are stressed, when we are overwhelmed, when we are exhausted, we can continue to pour. We continue to go to work. We continue to show up for our families. We continue to show up for our friends. So the idea that you can't is like, we've proven that we can and that we do. But what I like to recognize even more so than that is that it's not about pouring from an empty cup. It's about what's inside of your cup is pouring out into every area of your life. So when you are filled with love and joy and peace and gratitude, that's what you're pouring into your friendships, into your relationships, into your coworkers, etc. When you are filled with anxiety and frustration and stress, that's what you're pouring into those areas too. So it's really about cleaning up your side of the street first, about thinking about like what's within me that I am spreading out into the world. And in doing that, like, that's what, and using that as a reason to really prioritize your own self-care. If you constantly feel like, oh, well, someone else needs me more, or my job needs me more, or whatever, I've really started doing this a lot with myself in business, right? Because I'm self-employed, it's very easy for me to plan another retreat, to write another, like, record another podcast, or write more in my book, to just, like, go. There's nobody, like, there's no, like, clock out. Like, we don't arrive at 5 p.m. and I just turn off the things and just like enjoy my life. It's very easy for me to keep like going with all of the work that I do, but I've really started having this another mantra for myself, like me first, me first. And it sounds almost selfish, but like I will be at like 10 a.m. like mid podcast and realize that I have not drank any water that day. And I'm like, that's kind of crazy. Like, how do you expect to thrive and be the version of yourself that can really support and hold space for others if you're not even like hydrated, right? Like, so the idea of me first has been really, really helpful in like setting boundaries in multiple areas of my life to support myself in being the best version of myself so that I can show up so fully for other people. Number 8 says thoughts equal reality. How you think, you feel, you act. But I think we kind of already talked about that when we were talking about our brain not being our friend. So I'm going to throw in another one here on purpose, which I think, as we were just talking about, like what's in our cup spills out of our cup into other people. When we think about purpose, we often think of it as being something like big and grandiose, like, oh, finding a cure for cancer, or speaking on stage to 1 million people and like making them like have this major transformation, or like we think of our purpose as like opening a shelter that saves all the puppies and kitties, like being this like big major thing in order for it to be meaningful and impactful. When in reality, the energy that you have within yourself, you pour out into the people around you. And the energy that you give to them, it like creates a ripple. Then they bring it home to their families and spread it out to their coworkers and to their friendships, right? So if you are taking care of yourself and you are really nurtured and really aligned and really taken care of and really joyful and peaceful and just really cleaning up your side of the street, doing the things you need to do to feel good, and you're pouring that positivity into other people, it's going to uplift them so that they're pouring that positivity into even more people, and it creates a ripple effect and truly spreads as farther and wider than you can imagine. So when you think about your purpose, if you're someone that struggles with your purpose and feeling like, oh, I'm working this job and I really don't feel like it's what I'm meant to do, maybe it's not what you're meant to do. Maybe it's not what you enjoy doing, but maybe it does pay the bills and gives you a level of financial stability that empowers you to do other things in your life. So your purpose doesn't always have to be tied to your career, but I do think that being a positive light in the world is enough of a purpose where you don't need it to be this big major thing. Number 9 kind of also ties into that, but it's your vibe attracts everything. So I think energy often comes off as being this like kind of woo-woo spiritual kind of topic, but I truly believe that energy is very real and tangible. You've been at a party where somebody walks into the room and their presence just like lights up the room. Or you've walked into a room where a fight has just taken place and you can feel the tension as if you can cut it with a knife, right? Like you've been in places where you can feel the energy that's happening, right? And so if you think about yourself going into, say, a job interview, right? If you go into that interview like feeling small and like uncertain of yourself, like they're gonna feel that subtlety and it's gonna impact the connection that you guys have. Versus if you go in with like confidence and positivity, they're going to feel that energy and it's going to impact the experience that you have, right? Or dating. If you are like pursuing someone with like this desperate energy, it's not going to feel very good to them. Versus if you approach it with this kind of like playful energy or this joyful energy, like maybe it will feel a little bit better. And so you know that there are people that you just enjoy being around that just are like really positive and like just great company, right? So that vibe that you're putting off is influencing all of your relationships, all of your success. Like I know when I still have my studio, but there was a time period where I was always really stressed. Like, how do I get more clients? How do I fill up this sound bath? How do I sell out this retreat? And like always like post, like, and I think that level of like desperation, like definitely like pushed people away a bit. And then I got to this point where I just recognized like, I can't control this. Like I can put it out there, I can offer it, I can show up in integrity and in alignment with myself. Like, but I can't control the outcome of it. So if I just put it out there when I feel called, like, and not have this pushing and forceful energy, extend it out as an invitation for people to join if it feels in alignment for them versus like this like pushing forceful thing, then I'm gonna have a much better time. And I do. Like, as soon as I let it go, like now I don't really have a really hard time filling up a lot of my offerings. They just do. And if they don't fill up, being anxious and stressed about it doesn't add any value to my life anyways. Like, the outcome is the outcome. Some things you just can't change. So, but anyways, showing up in energetic alignment that is either going to attract people or push people away. So, number 10 is the power of your intuition. So we are taught from a very young age how to think logically about the right step, the next move, whatever. But I find that, like, when I'm listening to my intuition, things are just like flowing so much better. Like, in all sorts of capacity. I'll have people come to me that want to collaborate, and like logically it makes sense on paper. The money's there, or I have the time, or like whatever. But there's something that doesn't genuinely feel good about it internally, and I like don't go through with that. Or like, I'll have inspired ideas. I wake up in the morning and I have an idea for a reel or a podcast or a workshop or whatever. And those end up always being like really good. Like, when I'm like forcing ideas to come through, like, what's the next podcast that I have to record? What's the next course I have to make? What's the next retreat I have to launch? Like, those things end up being like not as fantastic as the things that like come to me more naturally. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes perfect sense. Like, I have to do this. Intuition comes in many ways, right? It comes in like, I think that energy and intuition kind of go hand in hand in my opinion. Like, your energy that you put out is like what you're either like bringing in or pushing away. And then your intuition is your ability to tap into that energy and respond to it accordingly. I'm sure other people have different ideas of what intuition and energy are and how they like interact with each other, but like, that's my understanding from the last 10 years, and like has really like made such a positive impact in my entire life. So, just a quick recap. I'm going to go 1 through 10 on all the things that we've talked about. 1 is the importance of the mind-body-spirit connection. You can't be well within one if you're not well within the others. 2 is that the first 10 minutes of your day create the quality of your day. The quality of your days equals the quality of your life. In order to have a good routine, you have to have good sleep, and good sleep is dependent on a good nighttime routine. 3, your brain is not your friend. How you think influences how you feel influences how you act, and that creates all of the results in your life. So learn how to befriend your mind in order to make forward progress. 4, size down your goals, size down your habits into micro habits that will help you build confidence and motivation as you go. Stop setting yourself up for failure by dreaming too big. 5, practice gratitude to get rid of that I'll be happy when syndrome or the arrival fallacy. 6, look at your emotions as a range. Don't expect yourself from going to go from the bottom to the top. Try to climb the rungs with small, sometimes seemingly meaningless activities that make you feel just a little bit better, even just 1% better. 7, you can't pour from an empty cup, except you do. What's in your cup is pouring out into every area of your life, so focus on what's inside of your cup that you can give to others. 8, your purpose doesn't have to be this big, grandiose thing. It can just be being a positive light in the world and creating a ripple effect of hope, healing, love, joy, peace, gratitude, whatever. 9, your vibe attracts everything. The energy you put out is what you're calling back in. And 10, learning to listen to and follow your intuition. So there's a lot more things that I've learned in the last 10 years. I'm currently working on writing a book that I've just submitted for publishing, so it'll hopefully be out in the next year, that dives really deep into these 10 ideas and a lot more ideas that have really helped me transform my life over the last decade. If I were to look back 10 years ago and saw that like I was hosting as many retreats as I am now and helping as many people as I am now and traveling as much as I am and as financially stable as I am and as mentally, emotionally, and physically, spiritually well as I am, I think I almost wouldn't have believed it. And it doesn't all come at once, right? Like, maybe you take one of these ideas and start to fully practice it and put it into motion. And then down the road, like, another one of these ideas presents it as time to integrate into your life. Like, it's not a linear journey. There are times that I'm like flying high, and there's times that I'm like really in the depths of this, like, what am I doing with my life? And so it kind of comes and goes. It's like a roller coaster. But I think the more that you follow your intuition, it'll guide you on the path that you're meant to be on to find what serves you and what is best for you in your life. So take what resonates and leave the rest. I don't believe that any one person has all the answers. I think that this is just what I've learned and what's helped me. And so maybe that feels good for you or maybe it doesn't. But Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode on the podcast. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to be diving deeper into some of these topics as well as additional topics like boundaries. If there's a topic you want to see explored on the podcast, feel free to drop a comment and I will create an episode answering any of the questions you may have. But I thank you so much for your time and your energy today. I hope that these ideas serve you and help create positive change in your life. And I will connect with you again soon.